Welcome to the bold analysis, ladies and gentlemen. Why is the shilling still declining while against the promise of President William Ruto that the shilling was going to appreciate? Remember the day we were talking about the oil deal. The President of the Republic of Kenya made a promise, and it was a political projection, that the shilling will even drop below 120. 2 months later, the opposite is happening, and the shilling is currently, I think, trading at around 146 today. Actually, it has reached record high. At one point, it even reached 150. And a Twitter user, Ahmed Mohamud, asked this question, and I want to look at this tweet. Prof, good job, but my question is, why is the dollar still high, and when we are expecting the shilling to gain as promised by His Excellency the President? David Ndii made a response that has shocked many people, and look at his response. We have restored a flexible market X-rate. This is to say X-rate is not a policy target. For example, the policy, you cannot put a policy that is directly going, as in you cannot make an order for the shilling to drop. You know, what the leadership style of Kenya Kwanza has been that this is going to happen, and it's been made easier. In class 4 primary school, we used to have something called seesaw, you know, and the seesaw was, I want to call it, I think, is it a farm tool or so? A tool to make work easier. That's a topic. So we've been made on a leadership of make work easier leadership. David is saying it will settle where market clears, demand is equal to supply. The president speculated where he thought that would be. He's not an economist. We advised him to refrain from doing so in future. Look at it. David Ndii is saying they advised the president from making such roadside proclamations in future. And I doubt whether they advised him. And if I am to overcome my doubt, or rather if I am to ignore my doubt, then I would have to reconcile my thoughts by saying that the president decided not to listen to. That's why political parties say that William Ruto is his own advisor. That what he's saying he has done, or what he's actually saying, the statement is actually saying that he advised the president to do this and it was not done, means that something did not happen as was promised. So it's very clear, or rather it's clear, that either this was said or this was not done as a saying. There's something that David Ndii is smashing his boss, that the boss is a man who doesn't listen. I want to be very categorical here. Do you know, we are just 3 days to the month where we were promised electric border borders. This promise was made in this promise I think was made in February. Forgive my memory, I can't even forget when it was made. There was a promise that by September we will have electric motorbikes. Yes, this was in respect to the issue about the fuel. You know, the fuel was high, and I think the borders were complaining, people were complaining, and then they were told that don't worry about fuel because in September we are yet to launch electric motorbikes. So we are waiting for that. Oh, I remember it was done in April. Now, why do President Ruto get himself into unrealistic or unpragmatic political declarations? That is what other people have always called, roadside declarations. There are layers of advisory. And one of the areas where there is a bit of a big problem is the area of economy, is because our politics was anchored, or Kenya Kwanza government was anchored on economic delivery. So economic recovery. One of the things that was really made, and it's very true, that our economy had been ailing and was ailing. I still believing it's still ailing because basically the area of economy have had a big problem. And the biggest problem with economy is because it's one of the flagship projects. It's one thing that unless William Ruto has two options, either to revive the economy or to revive the economy. There was no middle ground on the issue of economy. And that is why he seems to be under pressure on the question of economy. Now, it is also the area of economy where there are many advisors. On the matters of economy, William Ruto has economic recovery, economic council led by Ndii. There is another one led by the treasury, and there is another one by the state house team. And every ministry there seems to be, every cabinet office seems to be an economic advisor, and every politician seems to have an economic advisor. So that has been a problem, but this is what is happening. On the point of advisory, the government doesn't work into silos. I seem to see that things are a bit disjointed. William Ruto is getting a lot of advices from many people, and his leadership style means that there is no one he can trust with the job. Why? We have areas where he made calls. He himself, he said live on camera that he made calls to some principal secretaries, some permanent secretaries, some ministers to ask them what was happening in the ministries, and they could not understand. They did not have an idea of what their respective ministries are doing. And so it's very clear that they didn't have a clear picture on what exactly is happening. And so that's why I'm saying that on the question of economy, the government doesn't work in a silo. But on this one, he seems to be getting a lot of advices from the people. Number two, the Ndii and the team surrounding President Ruto must and should be shown the door. Because as we have been saying, the president is surrounded by a bunch of incompetent fellows. This issue is very simple. And I remember, and let me just explain for you to get this part. The reason why we were going for the oil deal, the reason why we were going for that oil deal is because most of our dollar, the dollar reserve we have here, the dollar demand, a bigger percentage, majority of our dollars we spend on imports of oil. And because that creates an increase in demand of oil, or rather an increase in demand for dollar, the supply and demand curve unfavors, disadvantages the shilling. And that is how the market, and that's how our dollar depreciates. That's how our shilling depreciates. That's what happens. So what government did is, because we are spending dollars to bring in oil, what to do, let's go and take oil on credit. You know, after taking oil on credit, then we come back and sell this oil to Kenyan shillings to the 96 oil marketing companies in the country. By that end, the few dollars we'll have here, we'll use them to export other products, but not the oil. And then economists they asked a very simple question. Now, aren't we piling dollars because after 6 months, we'll start repaying this loan in dollars. So when we start repaying, we'll still be in demand of the dollar. So at what point aren't we just keeping dollars that will then spend out and give out after some time? This is a question that was solely asked by the economist, and unless someone got his way, and that is why, I've been laughing about this matter. Even the promise that because we've done that, we are now going to work on the dollar, and the dollar is going to go down. I look at it and say, look here, it must take something very serious. It cannot take the casual way. William Ruto must then understand, and I will not shy away from saying this, I'll keep on repeating this to the bold viewers. President Ruto needs to leave the street, leave the rallies, stop talking on top of the sunroof, because when the population is listening, You seem to be overexcited to impress. So to avoid speeches to impress, go and speak in press conferences and go and work from State House. When you're speaking to journalists, you're not under pressure to impress. But when you're speaking to some specialist and you're speaking to population somewhere, you are under pressure to impress. There is no one that William Ruto is impressing. Don't impress in the speeches. Some of these things will happen and the population, you'll just understand. The intelligence will tell you that, what am I fry? You're doing something. Now, lastly, I may not have a problem, but I'm just asking this simple question. Do William Ruto sleep in Kakamega? Or did William Ruto sleep in these state lodges? My answer is no. He doesn't sleep there. He sleeps from State House in Nairobi. While it is very colorful and it's very splashy headlines that we're holding cabinet meetings in Kakamega, Sagana State Lodge, in those areas, isn't it unnecessarily expensive? Because now all the cabinet secretaries with their aides and their drivers and so are going to drive their way to Kakamega County. And my cue, they are not going to spend money on the other hotels. They're going to have those meetings there, then fuel those cars and drive those guzzlers back to Nairobi or to Kisumu and take the plane back to Nairobi. They're not going to spend in Kakamega. So while we look at decentralizing this, I tend to think there is something that we must get right. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my take. Let's meet in the next.